This is State Representative Jeffrey Elmore with your weekly session update for Thursday, June 23rd. Lots of stuff happening in Raleigh. It is really cranked up because the time that we are in with short session. So I'm going to give you a little bit of update about the budget process, how it is moving, talk to you a little bit about some federal issues, move down to the bills that have been sent to the governor, and talk to you a little bit about bills that are going through the House and bills that have moved from the House to the Senate. So lots to talk about in a short amount of time. First, the full appropriation chairs have finished their negotiations with the budget, and we have sent it to the two leaders, Speaker Tim Moore on our side with the House and Speaker Pro Tem Berger on the Senate side to resolve issues that are remaining. One of the big issues is dealing with Medicaid expansion. And Senator Berger stated in an article with WRAL that he wants to see Medicaid expansion in the budget. Speaker Moore does not want to see that, and he is dealing with that process right now. There is actually a bill moving through the Health Committee as we speak in the House chamber that creates more of a study and pathway dealing with the issue than a straight expansion that would be put in the budget, as Senator Berger publicly stated. And Speaker Moore also announced from the dais today that legislative business would be wrapped up next week. So we're on a very tight timeline to get a lot of that accomplished. So moving to some federal issues, first we passed a House Resolution 1174 to urge Congress to oppose a new Security and Exchange Commission's rule that deals with the enhancement and standardization of climate-related disclosures for investors. This rule change could dramatically affect the agriculture industry in North Carolina and the investors that invest in ag business. So it's kind of a terrifying rule because you don't necessarily know the immediate effects, but the long-term effects could really dry up investment dollars in agribusiness, which ultimately hurts the small farmer. We passed that resolution to basically send a message to our congressional delegation, Senate delegation, that, hey, we want you to oppose that rule. And that vote was 73-31. Also, just reading on the news this morning, basically around lunch, the Supreme Court is starting to pass down rulings, and there is one ruling that directly affects us in North Carolina, and it deals with our voter ID case. Currently, who's representing us in the voter ID case is our Attorney General, Josh Stein, which is a Democrat, and we have argued that that is not fair for him to represent our interest in voter ID, which the voters of North Carolina passed in their court cases, and that we as the Republican-led legislators should be able to use our own attorneys. This was taken all the way to the Supreme Court, this issue. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that we could use our attorneys when we are dealing in the voter ID case. So it's a good win, but still voter ID is in a court juggernaut where it is just being bounced around from every court, every level, and more lawsuits. So let's get into the legislation that is moving through the chambers here. First, we sent 3 bills to the governor this week. Senate Bill 278 deals with property family law and reimbursement of property expenditures. This basically deals with the states. There was some language where it wasn't clarified on how states are distributed and monies that are spent dealing with the estate. So there were some clarifications recommended by the North Carolina Bar Association. Those changes were sent to the governor. Senate Bill 138, funeral director exams and death certificates. This bill dealt with the entry-level examination necessary for a funeral director, making modifications to that, making sure our reciprocity requirements for licenses from other states, that those were clarified. And then it dealt with emergency declaration and death certificates. The funeral directors were having problems getting death certificates during COVID and the state of emergency. So what this does, this helps with the time frame if we are in a state of emergency, that the death certificate can get to the funeral home. Currently, statute says 5 days. This extends that in states of emergency. only at that time, but the current law will stay for normal times. So some more technical type bills there. One more that was technical was our annual HB 058 Retirement and Treasury Administration Changes Act. This is technical corrections dealing with the pension plans that we maintain for retired state employees, teachers, firemen, all of those. Some bills that are moving through the House, but we have not yet sent to the Senate. The first one is the Farm Act. The Farm Act made it through House Agriculture this week. It was changed and pulled the hemp provision out because the House had already passed the hemp provision in a separate bill, which is sitting in the Senate right now, for them to take up. So it was removed from the Farm Act because we had already voted on that issue dealing with hemp. It's currently sitting in House Finance because it had a few property farm exemptions with certain buildings in it, and that's kind of a tax issue, so it ends up in House Finance. Another one that moved through House Agriculture this week was House Bill 388, and this deals with property and sales tax changes, dealing with tax exemptions if you have a zoo and a farm. There are several different zoos in the state that are private zoos, so it's clarifying what is a zoo, what is a farm, and how does that mingle together. That one's also sitting in House Finance. Probably the most talked about one was sports wagering was put on the floor this week. Senate Bill 688. This act failed on second reading, 52-49. So it failed on the House floor. There was a motion to send it back to rules to where the bill would not totally die, but that motion failed. So that particular bill has been placed on the unfavorable calendar. Bills that we did get through the House this week and sent to the Senate, HB 807, Uniform Heroes Voting Act. This was a strange occurrence that we had in the last election where some policemen in uniform went to their voting location to vote, and they were not allowed to come in because they were in their uniforms. And the poll workers, not the folks outside, but the actual judges in the polling place, stated that that intimidated other voters and kept them from coming. This was an issue that the State Board of Elections resolved and took care of immediately and passed out some rules on it, but we codified this into law this week to where in the future, if you are military, if you are a policeman, and you have to go vote in your uniform, you cannot be denied because you have the exact same rights to vote as anyone else. So very sad that we have to pass this into law, but we did, and hopefully it will solve the problem. We also passed, sent to the Senate, Senate Bill 766, Organized Retail Theft. This is dealing with organized shoplifting rings. This affects all of us. We pay more at Walmart and other retailers because of shoplifting, and it's getting worse because it's becoming very organized. This increases the penalties for that to try to get some more control over that. We'll continue to be busy, especially next week. We will be in and out of the House floor and caucus as we try to wrap up our business. So it will be some long days next week, and I will update you then. Thanks for listening.